A wealthy old man shocks his young wife by giving everything he had, except a car, to the old woman working at the hospital he was getting treated at. Before the video starts, please subscribe to join our community. Your support helps us grow, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest content. Patrick Petting was envied by all his friends. The 79-year-old man was regarded as lucky because he had managed to snag a woman half his age in marriage. Alice, the woman who held him spellbound, was a beautiful lady with flawless skin, delicate features, and shapely curves. As far as everyone was concerned, she had eyes only for Patrick, and she demonstrated this at every chance she got. As a child from a poor background, Alice would never have expected to meet a man like Patrick, but she had, and the devotion she gave him convinced him that her love was genuine, so he married her. The wedding was a flamboyant affair organized by Alice, and she had spared no expense. Of course, it cost a lot of money, but Alice didn't care. It was not coming out of her purse. The more time they spent as a married couple, the more frivolous she became about spending money. One day, the old man became extremely ill and was moved to a hospital. Many of his friends visited him to wish him well, but Alice said she was busy and couldn't come. This made Patrick very sad, and he was very upset and worried about it. He wanted to see his wife, but she had no interest in hanging around with the sick. "I could also catch something at the hospital," she told him when he called her from his sickbed. "I'll be praying for you, honey." In truth, she was happy she could be free of him, as she thought he could be overwhelming. However, Alice had also made plans to make sure that her freedom would be permanent. Later that day, she received a package from a shady man, and she immediately drove to the hospital where her husband was getting treated. When she arrived, she quickly walked up to one of the front desk nurses. "I need to find my husband," she said, sounding desperate. "Please." After her show of emotion, the nurses pointed her in the right direction. When she located the room, the old man was not there. He had been taken for an examination, but that was perfect for Alice, who didn't need an audience for what she wanted to do. After making sure she was alone in the room, she slipped in and opened the package she had gotten. It was a bottle of drugs, several tabs of which she put into the glass of water on his bedside locker. Alice dissolved several tablets into the glass, then sneakily hurried out of Az. She closed the door behind her and ran straight into a cleaning lady, spilling all the contents of her bucket, including the soapy water she was cleaning the floor with. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the old cleaner said, as she tried to right herself. "You should be," Alice groaned. "You need to be more careful when you walk." Her rude words rubbed Martha the cleaner wrong, and it made her frown as she tried to decide if it had been her fault while watching the lady walk away. Her eyes were surveying her materials to ensure they all didn't get ruined when she fell, but she found something else instead. It was a small bottle of drugs, and Martha knew instantly that it must have fallen from Alice. She recognized the drug and knew what she had to do. By the time Patrick returned to his ward, Martha was just leaving. He met her as she exited his room, and she told him that she had cleaned his room. After making sure she was alone in the room, she slipped in and opened the package she had gotten. It was a bottle of drugs, several tabs of which she put into the glass of water on his bedside locker. Alice dissolved several tablets into the glass, then sneakily hurried out of Az. She closed the door behind her and ran straight into a cleaning lady, spilling all the contents of her bucket, including the soapy water she was cleaning the floor with. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the old cleaner said, as she tried to right herself. "You should be," Alice groaned. "You need to be more careful when you walk." Her rude words rubbed Martha the cleaner wrong, and it made her frown as she tried to decide if it had been her fault while watching the lady walk away. Her eyes were surveying her materials to ensure they all didn't get ruined when she fell, but she found something else instead. It was a small bottle of drugs, and Martha knew instantly that it must have fallen from Alice. She recognized the drug and knew what she had to do. By the time Patrick returned to his ward, Martha was just leaving. He met her as she exited his room, and she told him that she had cleaned his room. "Thank you, ma'am," he said. When Patrick walked into his room, he took a quick look around, appreciating the cleanness. Then he discovered a note on the table from his beloved wife. "I love you very much. Sometimes it may seem to you that it is not true, but the fault lies with me because I don't know how to express my feelings. The most important thing for me is that you recover quickly. You're Alice." The letter warmed his heart, and he could not stop thinking about it for the rest of that day. He made a quick phone call to his lawyer before retiring back in his bed. The following day, he summoned his wife to the hospital and called the cleaning lady. When they both arrived, he summoned his lawyer and presented his will to his wife. Alice's eyes bulged when she saw the contents of the documents. Her husband was leaving her only a car while everything else was going to the cleaner. "How could you do this?" she asked, stunned. "How is this fair?" Unfazed by her reaction, Patrick revealed the ruse. "When I arrived at my ward yesterday, I saw a letter on my table," he said. "It was addressed to me, and it was a lovely letter. The writer would have me think it was from you, but I know it was not your doing." "Why?" "First off, I knew you always made errors when you wrote words, but everything in the note was written correctly and grammatically right. That was a dead giveaway, but not as much as the handwriting. You see, they were familiar to me, and it took me several minutes to remember whose writing it was." He turned to Martha. "Then, you once wrote me a note of medicines my doctor asked me to buy," he said. "Why did you write that letter?" The old woman was afraid of getting caught not minding her business, so she was stiff with fear. But he begged her to speak as he meant her no harm. When she did, Martha told him about how she had run into his wife and found the drug bottle afterward. "I asked a doctor, and he said they were bad drugs. So I returned to your room, threw out the water I saw by your bedside, and replaced it with a bottled one." Martha also revealed that she wrote the note so he would feel better and get well faster. After she finished speaking, Patrick turned back to Alice, who had a look of horror on her face. Her plan had just backfired. "Do you know why I left you nothing of my wealth except a car?" he asked her. "It is so that you can use it to get as far away from me as possible and never return, or I'll tell the police about what you tried to do." Alice took the threat very seriously, and before Patrick was released from the hospital, she had packed her things and taken off. What can we learn from this story? Don't let your greed control you. Alice let her greed for Patrick's money push her into attempting to kill him faster, but unfortunately for her, she ran into someone who offset the whole thing, and she lost it all. Trust your gut. Martha could have chosen to mind her business even after she found out how deadly the drugs were that day, but her gut instinct made her return to the bedroom and switch out the water, thereby saving Patrick's life.